Hey guys, so now that we have the two finalists from the Ultimate Fighter 20 and also the matchup between the two losers from the semifinal fights, I'm going to give you my predictions for those. Just those two fights here, because when I made my predictions for the rest of the card, I did that before the last episode aired, so if you want to check out the rest of my picks, I'll link that video. You can also check out my predictions for Dos Santos versus Miocic, full card this weekend, and I'll also have my predictions up for next weekend's card, Machida versus Dalway. Alright, so we'll start off with the fight between the two semifinalist losers, Jessica Penne and Randa Markos. I think this is a really interesting matchup. I think fairly evenly contested. Both women impressed me on the show. Jessica Penne has a pretty strong grappling game. Her striking seems to be a bit average. We just saw in the semifinal fight against Carla Esparza, she really got outstruck, even being the taller, longer fighter. Esparza seemed to be able to connect with her punches better than Penne. And for as strong a ground game as Penne has, she doesn't seem to be able to get it to the ground at will. Doesn't really have a great wrestling game as far as I can tell, but once it is on the ground, she uses her length really well to get mount and back control. We saw that in both of her other fights against Aisling Daly and Lisa Ellis, getting the submission there. So has a strong jiu-jitsu positional grappling game. And Randa Markos, on the other hand, is a strong wrestler. I think she's pretty underrated throughout the show. Her first fight against Tisha Torres was a little rough in the early going in that fight. Was able to win that fight with takedowns, and then her next fight against Felice Herrig got a real quick finish in the first round. Threw Felice Herrig on her head and submitted her from that crucifix position with an armbar. It was really impressive. And then in her last fight against Rose, made it competitive, even though it was a really short fight. She blitzed her on the feet, went after it, but in trying to leg trip Rose was able to put her on her back. They had a bit of a scramble, and Rose ended up on her back, but was able to get that Kimura that she just seems to be really deadly with. Also catching Joanne Calderwood with that in her last fight, and Markos lost there. So I think this is going to come down to Markos' wrestling and Penne's grappling. Markos didn't seem that comfortable on the ground with Rose. I certainly don't think Penne has that same kind of submission ability as Rose. And obviously, Rose is one of the best fighters in the house, but Penne's good on the ground. When Carla took her down, she seemed uncomfortable in Penne's guard. She was able to force a stand up there, and I'm going to take Randa Markos just because of her wrestling. And I think on the feet she might have a slight advantage, but Penne's a strong grappler, and I can see her getting Markos in some bad positions on the ground. But it should be a competitive, closely contested fight. I'm going to go with Markos. Just going to slightly favor her here. And then in the main event, Carla Esparza and Rose Namajunas for the women's strawweight title. And I definitely think both these women stood out above the rest in the house. I definitely think this is the right number 1 and 2 ladies fighting for the belt. And obviously Rose Namajunas looked head and shoulders above the rest of the competition this season. both with her striking and on the ground, like I already talked about. She just seems to have a super dangerous jiu-jitsu game off of her back. Seems to get that Kimura real easily. Finished 2 fights in the house with that. And I believe she submitted, did she submit her first opponent, Alex Chambers? Yeah, she submitted her as well. I believe it was a rear naked choke. I can't quite remember. But obviously a very dangerous jiu-jitsu game that she sets up by hurting people on the feet, and very calculated on the feet. Great striking from distance. Throws a lot of wild kicks, front kicks, and stuff like that, and good with her hands as well. I definitely think she'll have the striking advantage here, although Carla Esparza impressed me with her striking. I think it got better throughout her fights. And she outboxed Penne in her last fight, and also Tisha Torres had a rough start on the feet, but seemed to take over with the striking in that fight as it went on. Mixes her striking with her wrestling fairly well, and seemed to be one of the only ladies in the house, probably other than Randa Markos, who could get a takedown at will. So she has strong wrestling, but we saw when she took down Penne and got in her guard, she couldn't do much. So I think Rose would just eat her up there if she takes her down, probably get a submission. I do think Esparza is really tough, good on the feet and on the ground, like I just said, but I have to take Rose here. I just think she's in another level, another class, and I think she's elite, and just, like I said, head and shoulders above the rest of the division. So I'm going to go with Rose Namajunas. I think a finish is fairly likely, not certain, because Carla Esparza is tough. I think she might be able to make it interesting with a few takedowns, but Namajunas really deadly off of her back with her jiu-jitsu, and no one's been able to really get past her stand-up, so I'm going with Rose to win this. Alright guys, those are my 2 quick predictions for the final bouts on the TUF 20 finale card. Thanks for watching, guys. Check out my picks for UFC on Fox, Dos Santos versus Miocic, as well as Fight Night Dalloway versus Machida. I'll have links to those videos as annotations in this video. But take care, you guys, and see you next time. Bye.